That was the Ahmaud Arbery video, a young black man running through the neighborhood, exercising like everybody in the world does, and two individuals saw him looking into a house under construction, assumed he was robbing or casing the joint or whatever they thought, and you see the video, they run him down and end up shooting him, and he dies from that. To go in as 4 black men right now, to always be looked at as a suspect and not a citizen. What does that video bring out of y'all?
I mean, initially, obviously, considering what we've all gone through, I mean, definitely under the eyes of social media, where it's blatantly done right in front of us with the police brutality, and everything else that's taking place, it makes you, angry first. I think that's the first reaction and frustration. It's okay and it's warranted to react that way, but we also have to make sure that we let everything sort of, and I'll probably get some criticism for this.
Play itself out.
But things do have to play itself out in a sense where we're not so quick to jump to conclusions.
But to play itself out, 2 guys, no legal, nothing behind them.
That was
pulling
one side
out.
of it, because that was the information that we all got back, right? Whether they tried to hide footage or this or that or not, then just recently video came out.
Yes.
So we were able to see it. But because we saw the video, now everybody's pissed, they're upset, and I was the same way. Like I said, that was my initial reaction. So I just kind of sat back and sort of try and watch it play out. Not to say, that I don't mourn for his mom or that I care less for, for black people. No, I'm a black man, and I've been through all that.
But Fred, you can't make it a norm.
No, I'm not saying that, and I'm not trying to
rationalize.
I'm not trying to justify it. I'm not trying to justify it. What I'm saying is, there are certain facts. Murder isn't right, regardless, period. They shouldn't have murdered him, period. That's what it looks like to me, stone cold murder. And then you have a set of laws. And then you got the prosecutors that got to prosecute it a certain way. If they call it murder, in which they arrest these guys under, if they can't prove that it was murder, because murder is defined a certain way. So if they can't prove that it murder, these guys can walk. But if they consider it manslaughter, so it goes back to whatever the prosecutor charged them with. So that's where you got to be real careful. You can't be so quick to pass judgment, because you want to make sure you get these guys.
But like you're talking about as far as like the facts, you want to wait and see what
we
actually
can
happened.
Sit here and say these are the facts because this is what we saw. Yeah, it is what we saw. And being that because it happened in Georgia as opposed to Florida, for example, in Georgia, you can make a citizen's arrest if you believe it was a felony offense. These people sat and they watched him, creep through the neighborhood or whatever. So now it gave them the right. I am not saying it's right because it's dead wrong in my opinion, but they felt that they had the right and the obligation to go and try to make a citizen's arrest that carried on to young Ahmaud. Seems in the video that he attacked the guy, right? Now it's a situation where you're gonna leave it up to a jury to decide what's self-defense, because you got one guy with a shotgun who was aiming it at the young man that ran towards him, who now he's in a self-defense situation, and also the guy with the gun is in a self-defense situation. And I'm not condoning what the McMichaels did. I don't agree that you shouldn't murder the guy. If you're gonna question him, hey, look, why were you at the house? I get that part.
That ain't their job.
It's not his job, but I just said it's the state. But they're in Georgia. It's not your job, but some people take it serious. And these guys, one of the father is a former police officer. So now he understands that this is the law. I want to take it a step further and see if I can make a citizen's arrest.
All
right or wrong.
I see y'all getting heated, right? Y'all about to Chan over there getting heated. We probably let's eat some food real quick, because Chan like, what? They ain't they job, chef. What we got right here? You came in at the perfect time.
Jumbo lump crab and shrimp fried rice and little shrimp egg rolls.
Chef Nancy, you trying to put some weight on me every week.
Carb him up.
every week.
Carb
Well,
City.
you're not playing, so it's time for you to enjoy some food, right?
Okay.
Ooh.
I'm gonna be on my 600
Well,
pound
I'm
life.
still playing,
Oh
Chef.
yeah. Oh, well, we gotta get Brandon ready for his.
Yeah. So I can't eat too many of these meals. You know what I'm saying?
Slide your
Did you
crabs in
just
my
say you
lap.
want to play?
It's gonna help your back out.
All
His
right.
re-entering debut. Enjoy.
Thank
So
you.
Chan, your original question was what?
But as y'all see, you just joked about it. That it enrages me. When I first saw the video, when I continue to see the video, it enrages me that you feel as if you can run this young man down, this young black man down, and shoot him because you saw him looking into a construction site. That is unaccepted. I don't care what state it's in. That is not the country. That's not the world I want to raise my kids in. And it's really not the world I want to raise my young black male son in of what I saw in that video.
Well, that's what bothers me, right? I get it, and Fred mentioned it. You know, each state has its own set of laws, and I get that. But I don't care what state you're in. You shouldn't be riding around shooting nobody. You know what I mean? And I don't know exactly how it worked from the video that I've seen, right? Did they ride past him and wait on him to catch up? Right? It was two of y'all.
Yeah.
Right? It's two of y'all. One of y'all got a cell phone. You can follow him. Call the police, follow him. Tell the police where you're at. You know what I'm saying? Like, but for you to, wait on this young man to come to you and shoot him like it's hunting season, that's what bothers me.
Yeah.
And I don't give a if you black, white, green, blue.
Yeah, there's
Like
no
that-
threat.
no,
there's no threat. He didn't
there's
have a
no
gun in his
reason.
hand.
Like,
None of that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's two of y'all.
Yeah.
And y'all ain't it ain't like y'all weighing 110. Like, y'all some big dudes. If you really want to make a citizen's arrest, tackle him. Get him to the ground.
Two of y'all.
Two of y'all.
Yeah.
Get him to the ground. Call the police. And then let the police, as they say, let the authorities handle it, right?
What's interesting is this, though, right? We all live in the same neighborhood. Fred was the first to move into our neighborhood. Reggie then came, and then all these other actors, entertainers, and athletes came into our neighborhood. You know what the thing to do in our neighborhood is? We actually go into the houses.
Go into the houses and look.
And look.
And we're not talking about the rich guy that's building the house. We're talking about the rich guys that already live there.
This is one of Fred will tell you, this is one of his favorite things to do. Like, for real, Fred says this. He has been in every house in our neighborhood.
Right.
Because he's been the first one in our neighborhood since day one. So when you talk about what he's done and everybody's making this a big deal, I personally, every day on my golf cart, when I roll through the neighborhood, we got this baseball player built in this house in. My wife look at me all the time like I'm crazy. Cause I'll be going over his pavement that's still under construction, and I'm taking the family through the house.
The house next door to you, right? When it was under construction, I probably went there about 3 times.
Yeah.
I've seen it's almost like I'm part of that building. Like I seen it when it was no stairs. I've seen it with stairs. I've seen it when it like.
And if any of y'all, Fred been in every house, B. Marshall, you take your family around houses, Reggie, you been in there. At any moment, if the owner or the construction manager or whoever's in charge of the house at the time comes up to that house when you're there, they're gonna ask you, what are you doing? And I guarantee you're gonna say what? My bad. I live in 1904.
Right.
And I was just coming over here to check the house
but
out.
this
You know what they're
is
gonna say?
the problem.
Okay.
I'm not even thinking about. I'm not thinking about getting shot. I'm thinking I know it's wrong.
Right.
I know I
Not
could be hit
even
for
necessary.
trespassing. But you know, if someone come to me, the owner, the builder, developer come to me and says, "What are you doing on my property? You're not supposed to be here." I'm gonna be like, "You're right. I'm sorry." But the last thing on my mind is that someone's gonna come and shoot me from walking in this baseball player's house. Now, what I would say this, because your original question is, how did it make you feel? And this is something that I've been thinking about for years, since the Kaepernick deal. When Kaepernick, when all this happened with Kaepernick, and he took a knee, and he started talking about oppression, and he started talking about the injustices in the world and in America, I didn't feel anything. And I'll start looking at myself like, what's wrong? you know, because I didn't feel anything. And I haven't said much about it. Now I'm behind the scenes. I've supported the Players Coalition. I supported people in the community. I've done anything that I could to support it. But as far as speak out in rage and anger, I haven't done that. Now when we're talking about this situation.
But that's okay, I think.
It put things in perspective for me. This is why. Because this has been happening for years. We are trained in our neighborhoods where we're from, where a lot of us are from the same neighborhoods. We're trained to survive. And part of what is trained and instilled in us is when you walk out of this house, this is what you're going to have to deal with. We've been having these conversations about injustice and oppression. My father, when I was younger, he taught me how to deal with the police.
Yeah.
I saw my father on our patio, on our front porch, fight against the police. And my mom right there with them, fighting the police. And my dad take off and run down the alley in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So for me, the only thing this has done for me is kind of, it spoke to me like, okay, this is why you feel the way you feel. And how I feel is like, this, excuse my language, this been going on.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't really get moved. But now it's time for us, to stand up and say something. And what I said when Colin Kaepernick went through this, because it wasn't, what didn't move me, what moved me, it wasn't what Colin Kaepernick was saying and what he was standing up for, it was how he was being treated, right? And that was one of the things I said, it doesn't matter because all players and everybody in life, they have their own thing that they stand up for and they're a champion of something. For me, it's mental health. And this is the one thing in the world, this is the one thing that if you are human, you stand up for all. And this is, to me, it's like, it don't matter what you believe in. You can't say, you know what? Yeah, I love pets. I love, raising money and awareness for cancer in the mental health community. And then you see someone being shot in the street and you don't do something. But I couldn't understand why, when I saw these things, I didn't get moved until I saw Ahmaud Arbery being shot down in the street. And I was like, you know what? We're used to this.
And that's the big thing. We are traumatized. It's over almost 500 years or so of being oppressed. You mentioned being identified. He was in a certain neighborhood. What happened in that particular situation, like I said, I was pissed because they did identify him as a threat. And fear is a motherfucker. Excuse my language. Fear is a bitch.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you see a lot of responses towards the black man is because of what they fear and don't necessarily understand. So I'm not, like I said, I didn't condone the slaying and the murder of Ahmaud. Don't get that twisted, whoever viewers might be. What I was saying is when certain laws in place, there are a lot of loopholes in place too. And if you got a defense that don't come with their shit, or a prosecutor who's slacking and don't come with their shit, then you got issues, bro. Because they called it murder.
Yes.
You're from Georgia.
Yes.
That's what's going to get tricky.
The culture there is a little different.
I'm a country dude and I'm from the Bible Belt. Y'all actually figured it out how the way I damn talk. Bro, do y'all understand that Jim Crow laws ended in 1965? Bro, that's what, 55 years ago? So the man that killed the Daddy McMichael, that actually killed Ahmaud, he was 64. He was 9 years old. When he was 8, his parents and everybody in his family and everybody in the United States, honestly, the southern states that, slavery went on, they looked at African Americans as animals. He was 9 years old when he was told black people are equal to you. The people that were raising him were all living under slave rules or Jim Crow laws. Everybody goes back to, oh God, man, that's so long ago. That's years ago. 1965 is not long ago.
Correct.
In 1964, we were thought of as cattle. We were equal to a cow or a sheep or a pig. And those people are still in this world. That's 55 years. There's 90, 80, 70, 60-year-olds out there that liked and enjoyed the Jim Crow laws. I can't speak for the McMichael family, but what I saw in that video, I would say that they did not look at Ahmaud as a human. They looked at him as an animal. And that's how you treat an animal. What they did, going in front of him, Reg, turning the truck sideways, pulling the guns out and waiting for him to get down the road. That's not what you do to a human being. That is taught. And that's what people in this country still feel. And that's what in the people's heart. And when they look at you, they don't look at you as a human. I'm not saying every white person, anybody, any hue of color. I'm just saying that we cannot be naive as black men that we are equal or they think we're equal to them, no matter how much money or fame or success or how big our damn houses are. There are people that live in our neighborhoods that could have been brought up by somebody that loved colored and white bathroom, colored and white restaurants. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's what I'm talking about. I don't like this. I don't like watching that. It's not numb to me, B. I get upset when I see something like that. I get upset when I see a human that looks like me, that looks like my dad, looks like my cousin, looks like my son, getting treated like a piece of meat, like a sheep.
The change is gonna come when we actually get out there and force legislation. You know, people talk about, well, I ain't voting because they're gonna pick the president. We have to become more aware of who our elected officials are and in the positions that we're putting them in. That's where the real change starts. What is being upset gonna do?
But the thing that
we got to get people, all of us, we have to spread awareness.
Yeah, but
whether it's through this podcast.
It starts with this. I hear what y'all are saying, but what Kaepernick did, there's a lot of players and black people like Kaepernick. Where you at, right? But what he did that was phenomenal was he started this conversation in America. And from there, you talk about legislation and knowing what we're supposed to do. You have the Players Coalition, Anquan Bolden. You have Malcolm Jenkins doing some phenomenal work walking the halls of Congress, right? And that's the thing that made it powerful. And that's why I feel like a lot of, I don't feel like I'm alone, but I feel like I need to be transparent and honest. Because there's some people out there that is upset and been through the same things that I've been through and come from the same neighborhood that I come from. But the reality is, I know for sure everyone in this room right now, we all dealt with the same thing. We all come from the same place, but just different regions of this country. And for me, we are trained to survive. Right? And we grew up seeing this every single day, right? So the only difference is that now we have social media, we have cameras, and there's people talking about it. So now it's spreading like a wildfire. But this has been around forever. You just said it. This 1964, we were considered, equal to cattle. They looked at us as we were animals, right? So that's the thing for me. I think that this is a powerful conversation, and I think everyone out there needs to be transparent with how they feel and where they're at in this, because that's the only thing, to your point, is like just going to move this thing forward is everybody have honest conversations. But if you don't know what you're talking about, shut the hell up.
Period.
We have some wonderful people up here right now. We were talking about just the struggle. Y'all heard the show, you've been a part of it. We want to bring up the women because I really feel like the black woman is the rock. When we're going through it, I'm happily married, we're all happily married men. When I'm going through it, I always go home to my woman, to my wife, to my queen, and she has to talk me off the ledge. So we want to bring up Michi Marshall, Brandon's beautiful wife, and just see from your perspective with this conversation we've been having today, as the woman of the household, as the rock of the household, what's your perspective?
It's interesting that you bring that up. And one of the reasons is if you look back through history, truthfully, look at the civil rights movement, look at the second wave of feminism, even gay rights, right? The women, especially the black female activists, have always been the ones that have done the grassroots, the organizational aspect of it, and the civil rights movements. There's so many unsung heroes. Coretta is one of them. She and her singing is one of the reasons why Dr. King's mission was funded. Yeah. But those are the stories that you don't hear. That's the story that never gets told. The black woman activist is always kind of like the fable. It's a story that you hear of, but it's not something that takes you the distance. Now, today, I mean, when you think about it, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that we're doing day in and day out. We are who you come home to and you talk to. You share the struggles that you have to deal with, and you have to confide in us because there's times where you can't confide in the people in your organizations or at your work or other places, and we understand. The Black woman is probably one of the most unrecognized and disrespected of all the minority groups. To say that we understand, oh yeah, we understand. Yeah. We get it. I know. We know what it's like for somebody to talk over you, to look over you when it comes to a race, to treat you differently because you're African American or because your hair is curly and not straight, or your skin is a little lighter or a little darker. For my husband to come home and tell me situations that he's been in, or I can even remember, there was one time where he was out and I told him it was after one of the shootings that happened. And I told him, I was like, whatever you do, just do whatever the police officer says. Put your hands out the window. Don't say anything at all. Just put your hands out of the window. And it was in the middle of the night. And he wasn't concerned about it at all, but I was. I was terrified. He's a 6'5" Black man in the middle of the night going to help a family member. But if he had gotten stopped by the police at that moment in time, it could have been his life in jeopardy.
And that's what you that's the what y'all deal with, knowing what's going on and knowing the struggle and knowing how when you see a Black man walking down the street and another color or whatever walking down the street, that Black man's looked at differently. But Chef Nancy, you said you've had another perspective on this, being from New York, and you proud New Yorker now.
Oh yeah.
But being from New York, you said as a Black woman though, and The Rock and all that, all the same things I talked to Misha about though, you said you've had a different perspective on this conversation.
Well, I mean, in history, it's known that we were free up north. So it's a little bit different than down south. Although I've experienced racism back in the 70s, early as a child, there was 2 parts of Queens that you couldn't go in. And that was Howard Beach and Rosedale, which are now predominantly Black. And it was, oh, niggas leave, you know, like if you ride your bike into that area, stuff like that. But after that, there was really no racism amongst people. Now, police brutality and profiling, yes, but not racism amongst people. For me, I'm afraid of the South. I visit, but to live, no, I'm definitely afraid. Like my sister lives in Atlanta, but I wouldn't live in Atlanta because of the fear and the stories that I hear.
I will say, think about it. There's Stone Mountain, right?
Yeah.
That's a place where Black people were thrown off the side of a cliff.
Yep.
And
it's
it's just
the guys that threw them are now etched into the side of the wall, and they put a light show on them every 4th of July and every other Sunday or something like that.
And that's Atlanta.
But from Northern perspective, though, with both of y'all, it was you look down at that racism and down at the Jim Crow and all that stuff and what was going on, and it was.
Yeah, it was
you feared the South.
Feared it, and so it was far-fetched for us. You know what I mean? Like it was more stories and TV, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because we didn't experience person to person. Again, police brutality and profiling, yes, but not on a one-to-one basis.
And the last one for y'all, like what B. Marsh brought up, where the women seem now like they're more active. They're more just, saying more of the catalyst of change right now. Do y'all think it's because that you kind of took that backseat role? Because women are put on a lower pedestal than men.
Because it's our husbands and our sons.
And now Black women are put on a way lower pedestal because Black people were here. Now Black women are even there. Do you think that's why now the voices are coming out and now that's why y'all are more active and more of a catalyst of change?
I think it has a lot to do with it, but I also think that when you look at it at the end of the day, that's somebody's baby. That's my child. So I think in a sense, the men may be a little bit more desensitized to it because it's something that happens so prevalently all over the place, all of the time, in every walk of life. But I'm gonna say for a mom that birthed my child, for somebody to shoot at my child. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what they do for a living. I don't care what house they're walking in or out of. That is my child.
Yes. And I had to bring on Reese, producer, man of God, very, very big in the community. Just you're what I would want my son to be. And I know you have some strong feelings.
Man. Come on,
I know you have some strong feelings about our topic today.
Man, listen, first of all, before I say my piece, I want to thank these women here as mothers, as the people that literally cause people like Shannon and Fred and Reggie and Brandon to be able to do what we get to do. Because every one of us, I don't care where you came from, if it wasn't for you guys, and I'm not just saying this because we're post Mother's Day, I'm just saying, if it wasn't for you guys holding it down like y'all hold it down, we wouldn't be able to stand the way we stand. I heard Chef just say something that just kind of triggered something into me. She said, I'm afraid of the South. And I feel like racism is derived of any color, not just black and white, but it's always derived by fear. It's a fear-based reality. And I feel like when we talked about Arbery and things like that and what happened to him, man, if we can just keep infiltrating that fear over and over again, perpetuating it and not empowering our kids, because everyone here is a parent, not empowering our kids of what to do. Like, you train, you said you talked to Brandon, you're like, hey, let me just remind you, you're 6'5", you're black, and you're going to deal with it. Listen, that's preparation. And it's unfortunate that we've had to take this stance because of what has happened. But I totally believe in empowerment, man. I believe what you feed grows, what you starve dies. And I believe that we can prepare our children. I raised 2 sons. I got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. They're black, African-American young men. I do not train them every day defensively saying that you're black, you're African-American, so this is how you have to do. My parents raised me that way, my mom mostly. However, I trained them from a place of, listen, if I teach you how to just play defense, you're not gonna win a game. The best you're gonna be able to do is survive and maintain a situation. You're a professional athlete, you know that. At some point, you gotta score some points. At some point in the game, in order to have that W at the end of it, you have to win. And I believe that comes through empowerment. I believe that comes through just being mindful of legislation, who's in power. But I also believe it takes moments like this, what we're facing right now in our reality, to stand up and not be afraid to voice the thing that's been given to us by God, which is our voice. Like, everybody has an opinion. Racism is not new. I mean, I go back, my stance from this thing is I go back biblically 5,000 plus years ago, racism was in the Bible. Jesus himself was a victim of racism. You know what I'm saying? And how did he deal with it? He dealt with it through empowering. We got to get out of the reaction mode and get into the response mode. Response is when you drive something forward. React is what they want you to do. Yes. React is what they want us to do. You guys were speaking earlier. They want us to get excited and hit our social media up and start cussing and they want us to take that sensationalized, heightened way of living, so we do nothing about it. Because in 10 days, just like all the other accounts and the occurrences that's happened before, in 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, people will have forgotten about that, as opposed to being empowered by the moment. You know what I'm saying?
Don't try to survive.
Exactly. Survival is over for black people.
Thrive.
Exactly.
Survive, you're just going to make it. Thrive
exactly.
is what we want to be.
And the racism, I know we're talking about an issue between a black person and some white people, but it's a sin issue, bro. It's a sin issue, bro. There's a lot of racism in this world, and it's not just black and white. This is what we're talking about at the moment, and this is a very real issue at the same time, but it is a sin issue. It derives on fear. Eradicate the fear, racism can't live. But if we have time, I got 2 seconds for a story.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to hog the whole time here, but my dad, at the age of 16 years old, he was born and raised in Dothan, Alabama. If you know Dothan, you're talking about the South, fear the South. That's something, it's horrible. It was racist then and it's racist now, the reality there. He dated a young lady that was not black at that time. She had 5 older brothers. He fled to Florida from Alabama via gunfire. They were shooting at him to kill him. That nigger, excuse my language, but that's just true, is not going to be with our sister. We'll kill him first. He fled to come here and did that. When I was a kid, I grew up knowing my dad and his 5 brothers, and there was another brother, his name was Uncle Tex. Somebody had to tell me at the age of 11 that Uncle Tex wasn't my uncle. Uncle Tex was white. He didn't look like me. If anybody, in my opinion, everybody got a hero they look up to. If anybody in my worldview, my current worldview, had a right to be racist, it was my dad. But he didn't empower that racism by saying, you don't like no white people because 1 white person or 3 white people tried to kill me, X, Y, and Z, da-da-da. He said, this guy is a brother to me. And to this day, I'm 40 years old. Uncle Tex is still Uncle Tex. I refuse to let one act of hate make everybody a certain type of way. And I think that's empowerment. I don't raise my sons to hate people that are different skin colored than them. Yeah. I empower my sons to make decisions, be intellectual, have discernment about who and what led in your life. Because if we're all honest, we've been hurt by some people our same color as well.
Man, that's something that's strong there, Reese. Ladies, after hearing Reese now, I was thinking about this during your story. Do you feel as if you have to rationalize the situation to us, to your husband, you know, my wife, to me, does Asia have to rationalize? Do you feel to your man like you have to rationalize and enlighten us on what's going on and how to really get changed and just not be mad? Because you brought it up, Reese. Most of the time I just get mad, but mad is not going to change anything.
That's
Do you
right.
feel like y'all have to be the lighter voice, the rational voice in the relationship?
Definitely. You always have to. If I let my husband go outside mad, what's the chances that he'll return home?
That's right.
Because he's putting himself at risk even more going outside mad. So I would prefer to de-escalate the situation and talk him off of a ledge. Just basically, you have to think long term, the bigger picture. Your family needs you, you know, your wife needs you, so you need to calm down and don't do anything irrational.
And Michi, Brandon's special. We'll use that word special.
I'll leave my man alone, man.
Is there some times where you're the wife, the mom, and the therapist?
Of course. That just comes with the territory. Yeah. But for something as specific as this, I think that it's not so much talking somebody off of a ledge or talking Brandon off of a ledge. It's almost working smarter, not harder, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to approach the situation like, what are you going to gain? What are you going to gain out of that? If you walk out of the house and you're upset, fuming, pissed off, want to cuss somebody out because they treated you wrong, what will you gain from then going to that person and talking about how you feel and how they treated you? If they don't care, they don't care. What you say is not going to make that person care. Yeah. So you have to kind of like reflect and respond accordingly, right? You have to figure out what you want to gain from that situation. How are you going to win that situation? And I think that would just be the conversation that we have, just general conversation, not so much talking him down, although there's those times.
Oh, no. Behind every strong black man is a strong black woman.
Say it again.
Well, I would say behind or beside Channing.
No.
Lord Jesus.
That's what I said.
Never mind. I done up.
We had to fight to get a meal. Yeah, wrongfully accused. We had to fight to get appeals. That's why we right to get a deal. He on the team, he gotta eat, you know. Despite your skills, keep it riding for the fam. You gotta light the wheels straight up. Look in the past bad, work up in the trash bag. I'll pass a lot to take the test before I pass class. Yeah.